A recruiting palooza took place in Tuscaloosa over the weekend. Flip season in America is upon us, and there could be some recruiting classes that are about to crumble. This is the Inside Scoop. I am your host, Josh Newberg, and we're going to get right into it on a Monday. I am bringing in Director of Recruiting for On3, Chad Simmons. Chad, welcome to the show.
Hey man, happy to be back, Josh.
Hey, we got a busy weekend. Let's just get right into it. Some of the top talent in America was in Tuscaloosa, Alabama over the weekend to watch that big matchup between the Tide and the Aggies. Two of the biggest names on campus were five-star edge rusher Keon Keeley and five-star tight end Deuce Robinson. Both of them were in Tuscaloosa for official visits. Now let's first start with Keon Keeley, the five-star edge. As of right now, he's still on campus in Tuscaloosa, so we haven't really spoken to him. But, Chad, you are hearing some intel coming out. What is up with Keon Keeley's visit to Alabama?
Yeah, you know, as we speak, Josh, I mean, he's probably sitting there with his family with face-to-face with Nick Saban. Saban has his leg crossed, probably the loafers on, no socks on, pants a little bit high up on the ankles, and giving that final pitch to the family, which could be the final visit before Keeley, you know, makes that decision. So, but the buzz has been, as always, it seems, you know, very positive, you know, throughout the weekend. I've talked to a couple of different sources that have been in touch with Keon and people in his circle. And, you know, Bama, they know how to roll out the red carpet for the best in America. They know how to answer the right questions the right way, and they know how to check the boxes. And based on what I've been told, they've done a great job this weekend, really putting themselves in a good position to challenge, you know, Ohio State and Florida for Keon Keeley.
Yeah, you've been on the pulse of this recruitment for a while now. Before entering the weekend, you thought Ohio State had a good bit of momentum. But now with the Tide getting them on campus, do you think that Alabama could be the front runner for Keon Keeley?
Yeah, you know, it's hard to say, Josh. One thing I learned in this business is not judge too much too quickly coming off visits. You know, obviously, and he's still literally on campus right now. So I think we'll dig into this in the next 3 to 4 days as things kind of settle down. He gets back in touch with Ohio State. They try to maybe weather the storm about coming back from Tuscaloosa. But yeah, there was some real momentum around Ohio State and his recruitment. Man, I mean, taking 2 visits in a matter of 3 weeks to Columbus, one official, one unofficial, what they've done with defensive ends, defensive linemen in general under Larry Johnson definitely got his attention. But again, Bama was the favorite, you know, 6 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Ohio State kind of made some ground up with them. So Bama's looking to kind of counterpunch, you know, this weekend and get that momentum back. Again, based on what I'm hearing, things have gone really well in Tuscaloosa. I don't think Bama's going to go down without a fight, and neither will Ohio State in the end either.
Okay, well, Keon Keeley was a long-time commitment to Notre Dame. He reopened, he decommitted from Notre Dame in August, and a lot of people thought, you know, he was going to go to Florida. It was going to be a quick transition. He was going to maybe commit to Florida. That didn't happen. He's extended his recruitment into the fall. He hasn't put a decision date down, but do you think that there's a chance that we just watch Keon Keeley take his last official visit of the fall?
I do, Josh. I think that's very possible. Now, you know, of course, Florida would love nothing more than to get him on campus this weekend for the LSU game. Mm-hmm. When he had an official visit set to Florida, you know, second week of September, and that turned into an unofficial, their hopes were they could get him on that OV this coming weekend for LSU. Again, it's close to home, not far from Tampa, going up to Gainesville. Something I think we'll watch in the coming days. But based on what I was hearing going into this weekend to the Alabama visit, this was likely going to be it. They would take a couple of weeks, try to figure things out, and then make that decision.
All right, well, we'll see what you hear after Keon Keeley completes that visit to Alabama. But let's move on to Deuce Robinson, the #1 tight end in America. He was also on campus at Alabama this weekend. What are you hearing on that trip?
Man, you talk about, you know, a guarded camp. You know, Deuce Robinson does not let too much leak out. You know, he's very groomed on how to answer questions about recruiting, how not to give too much away, how to speak on every school, really the same way. Again, I haven't talked to anybody in Deuce's camp yet. I do know that he had a very good, according to one source, trip to Alabama, met with the baseball and football coaches, had obviously all his questions answered about how he'd fit into the offense, how he'd fit into the scheme. Again, based on what I'm hearing, Alabama's being considered. But maybe not up there with USC and Georgia based on what I'm getting so far. Again, something I'll dig more into, speaking with Deuce himself and his camp throughout the week. But again, Bama, they never have a bad visit as far as recruits go. But again, I'm still hearing more buzz around USC and even Georgia, where he was at recently for an OV, than I am Alabama coming out of this trip.
Yeah, USC has been the projected longtime favorite for Deuce Robinson, but get him on campus, anything can happen. Speaking about anything happening, linebacker Suntar Perkins, who's been committed to Ole Miss for nearly a year now, was at the game and he had himself a blast. If you follow him on social media, you'll see that he had a great time watching Alabama beat Texas A&M. My question for you, Chad, is how much do you take from his social media in terms of his how solid he is with his commitment to Ole Miss versus him entertaining Alabama? Do you think it's real? Do you think this is a troll? What is going on with Perkins in Alabama?
I mean, do I get like a pass option, Josh, for this show tonight? I mean, I just want to pass this one on to maybe another time. But with Suntar, man, anything's possible. People thought at one time he flipped Alabama through social media like 6 a.m. in the morning and with a tweet with a graphic of him in an Alabama uniform months ago. That there's been positive buzz, out of the Alabama camp that they felt good about flipping Perkins. And that's just not now. I was talking about back in June, July. They've been in the game. They've been very much in play. So I think the positive and the true thing I can speak on is that he did take the visit this weekend. He did make the trip to Tuscaloosa. And like you said, he made it clear he was having a good time. He loves the coaching staff. They feel they're in the mix. What happens next is anyone's guess. I think Perkins obviously has high interest in Alabama, but he's still committed to Ole Miss, an in-state program. What Lane Kiffin's doing there is a heck of a job in Oxford. So he's not going to let him go very easily, if at all, to Alabama. So I think we'll have to continue to watch and monitor what happens with Perkins. But what I can say, Alabama was happy to get him on campus, and they're very much in play for this.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, maybe this is all an elaborate troll between him and Lane Kiffin. I mean, if anybody knows trolling, it's Lane. So maybe this is all in cahoots right now. We'll see. Let's move on to another big-time five-star visit. Venice edge rusher Damon Wilson was in Athens this weekend. He's one of the top remaining pass rushers available in America right now, and he might be coming down to a decision soon. Chad, how big was this visit, and when do you think Damon Wilson will announce?
It was big, Josh. I mean, very big. I think coming into the weekend, Ohio State, had the momentum, had the edge. I mean, the kind of class they could potentially put together along the defensive front, if all the pieces fall their way, is pretty amazing. But Georgia is trying to change that, at least take one piece away from Ohio State and Damon Wilson. Of course, people thought he was a strong Bama lean at one time, taking that OV in the summer. Bama somewhat faded. It's become a battle between Ohio State and Georgia. Georgia had him on campus in June for 3 or 4 days, had him back on campus this weekend for an official visit. And I talked to Damon, his father, and other sources, and everyone basically was raving about the visit and how Georgia really presented itself as a program, as a football school, as an educational opportunity, as for life after football, as the social scene in Athens. They checked every box. Now, I really think Georgia, if they didn't take a little bit of a lead here, they made this extremely tight with Ohio State. And a decision could come, I think, in the coming weeks, Josh. I mean, Damon said to me, paraphrasing, likely by the end of the month in October, a decision could be made. Now, it could go into November, but I think as of right now, he's done with visits, and it comes down to him thinking and really going off that list of pros and cons, Georgia versus Ohio State.
Now, I know Miami was also a program that was trying to lock down the state. Obviously, things haven't gotten off to a great start with Mario Cristobal in his first year. But do you think there's a chance that they could still get Damon Wilson on campus before he decides?
I mean, always a chance, Josh. You in recruiting, especially with Miami and how they're recruiting and, extremely hard and trying to get these guys at least on campus for official visit to give them a strong look. It's always possible, but I would lean towards no. I would lean towards that Damon is done. I think Miami was somewhat on the outside looking in, even a month or so ago. And with the season going the way it's going, they have no real traction based on what I'm hearing with Damon Wilson. He's likely to leave the state going to Athens or Columbus.
Well, hopefully we find out soon on Damon Wilson. Another prospect that we might find something out soon on is four-star DB Chris Peel out of North Carolina. He's taken 3 official visits. Do you see him taking any more before he makes his big decision?
Man, he takes guarded to a whole nother level. We talk about Deuce Robinson and his camp being tight with news and not letting things leak out. Chris Peel the same way. I mean, he doesn't want to talk about his recruitment. He doesn't want to engage in conversations, even with sometimes college coaches, about what's going on, where his mind's at, is he close to committing. But what I can say, it seems like things are winding down for Chris Peel. Based on what I'm hearing, a decision is likely at some point this month. Again, with him, anything's possible. I don't think he'll ever, announce a commitment date, do some type of ceremony, name, 2 or 3 finalists per se on record. But I think it comes down to the 3 schools he took official visits to, Josh: In-State, NC State, and then Georgia and Michigan. And I think those 3 are battling out here pretty late in the process.
All right, we'll see if he makes any other visits before he announces his decision. All right, let's talk about one of the hottest teams in America right now, on the field and on the recruiting trail, and it's the Tennessee Volunteers. Coming off a huge win over LSU, they are heading home to Knoxville, and they are taking on Alabama. There's going to be a ton of recruits there. It's going to be the place to be, and one of them is committed to Florida State, and that's 4-star Alabama edge rusher Keldrick Falk. He's going to be in attendance for this one, taking an official visit to Knoxville. Chad, what are you hearing?
I think anybody committed to certain schools definitely, and really in today's world of recruiting, anybody is I guess flippable. Is that a word? Anybody's flippable out there, but Falk's definitely one to watch. I mean, he's been to Auburn a couple of times this year. He's visited Tennessee unofficially, now back for an official visit. They were in the mix over the summer when he made his decision to Florida State. So, yeah, I think definitely he's one to watch. I mean, like you said, man, Tennessee is on fire. I mean, what they're doing, building that class around Nico, obviously what they're doing, beating Florida at home, beating LSU on the road. They have a big weekend coming up with a chance to make a huge statement against Alabama. So Falk's definitely one to watch. He hasn't stopped communicating with Tennessee. Tennessee's definitely made it known he's a take, he's a target, and he's definitely one to watch.
Yeah, and Florida State hasn't got off to the greatest start. I mean, they were 4-0, but now they've lost 2 in a row. And I think it's kind of telling that Florida State is hosting Clemson at home this weekend, and Falk is deciding to go to Knoxville. So this one not over. Florida State still battling. I know that his family has a great connection with that staff, but flip season is upon us, Chad, so anything's possible right now. Let's stay in the state of Florida. The Gators could have a big commitment this weekend. Dijon Johnson, 4-star cornerback out of the Tampa Bay area, has announced that he's going to make his decision on Thursday. He decommitted from Ohio State over the summer. Didn't really take too many visits this fall, and now the decision announcement date is set. What are you thinking, Chad?
Thinking nothing different than when he decommitted from Ohio State, a while back. The Florida Gators, man. I think Florida, even when he was committed to Ohio State, had quietly positioned himself in a good spot and had him on campus, a handful of times. Some reported, some not. Obviously, he's from right there in Tampa, not a hard ride up to Gainesville to the Swamp. And he's gotten very familiar, very close with that staff. And he likes the fit, obviously under Corey Raymond, the defensive scheme under Patrick Toney. And, one thing I'm hearing consistently from recruits, whether it's guys that are committed to Florida, looking at Florida, or just considering Florida, that they like Billy Napier, his attention to detail, his structure. I think Dijon likes all those things, from Napier all the way down through the staff and the fan base in the Swamp. But I think Florida's in a great spot to finally land a public commitment from Keon Johnson.
Yeah, and also 3-star Georgia DB Bryce Thornton is set to make his announcement on Thursday, and it's also expected to be the Gators. So let me just connect the dots here, Chad. You got 2 DBs committing to Florida, most likely on Thursday. Okay. Do you think this has anything to do with Cormani McClain? Now, just hear me out. Maybe the Gators are trying to wrap up their entire DB class this week. We just saw what happened last week, and Cormani McClain cancels his visit to Alabama. It was supposed to be an official visit. It's off. Now, of course, they're saying that it's going to get rescheduled down the road. Or is the Gators going to close on him this week and just shut it all down?
Well, I mean, you really would make the Florida Gator fans happy and the coaching staff ecstatic if that's how it plays out this weekend, Josh, for sure. I do think, obviously, Cormani not going to Alabama, even though the word came out that it was never, I guess, quote-unquote, officially locked in or scheduled, him and Bama, but what is that kind of a cop-out? But they plan to try to get him back from Mississippi State, then an official in December. We'll see what happens. But I do think, like I've said before in recent weeks and in recent shows, that the momentum is around Florida for Cormani McClain. They definitely are in a great spot with Keon Johnson and Bryce Thornton, 2 DBs, 1 corner, 1 safety. Cormani would be the bow on that present for a great almost gifting week for the University of Florida. Does he show up this weekend at the Swamp? That's something we're definitely watching. I'm definitely hearing it's likely that he's there. If he's there, that's a win within itself for the University of Florida to kind of keep trying to add that momentum. I don't know if he commits this weekend, but Florida continues to trend for 5-star plus cornerback Cormani McClain.
Well, that's my conspiracy theory, at least. We'll see what happens. I mean, you know, if he does show up in Gainesville this weekend, having 2 other DBs committed this week, you never know. All right, Chad, thank you for hanging out with us. We're going to talk to you on Thursday. Big weekend coming up. Thank you for watching. Make sure you smash that subscribe button for me. And remember to check out all the videos on the On3 YouTube page.